ladies and gentlemen, to It Came From Netflix here on Reaction and Review. Tonight, guys, I'm taking a look at a horror comedy from 2013. That movie is Hansel and Gretel Get Baked. Now, I really don't know a whole lot about this film, guys, outside of, well, I know two things. One, the film is essentially it is essentially a retelling of the classic story, except instead of Hansel and Gretel running into a candy-filled house, they are trying to score some awesome weed from a witch. Apparently that's kind of their change-up, and that apparently is what's going to make this funny. The only other thing I really know about it is that it's from the producer of the Twilight films. At least that's what it says on every poster and on every website that dares to talk about the stupid thing. I have no idea if that's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. I have no idea if this movie's going to even be funny. I'm kind of hoping for it, because it honestly has a premise that sounds like it might be kind of sort of interesting, but the only way I'm going to find out if this damn thing is any good is if I shut up and I push play, and I'm going to do that right now. So, without further ado, it's time to kick back, relax, and check out Hansel and Gretel Get Baked. So the witch has a gingerbread house in her house. Alright. At least it kind of works as a reference. Granted, it feels incredibly forced, but then again, so do all the other fairy tale references this fucking movie has opted to make so far. And for a horror comedy, this thing is so far neither been funny or horror-ish, so I'm certainly hoping for it to get, better. But right now, guys, this movie's off to a rather slow and dull start. Oh, and the witch is a Nazi, too. What do you know? Guys, I genuinely thought that the concept of Hansel and Gretel in modern times trying to get weed would be a fun movie. Well, first of all, they aren't trying to get weed. Gretel is looking for her missing stoner, boyfriend right now, but still, you would think, though, that just any part of that premise would be interesting, and this movie's showing me that, no, when you try to take a children's story and try to modernize it and make it a little bit more adult and dark, it just winds up being fucking dull and kind of stupid. Wow, guys, it took us almost an hour, but we finally have a kill that is kind of sort of creative. Not great, but at least it was kind of sort of creative at least. Alright, guys, I have a valid question to ask. Is anything funny gonna happen in this supposed horror, comedy? Because I've been waiting patiently for a little over an hour now, and I haven't seen a single funny thing yet. I really think that if you're going to label your movie as a comedy, it should at least attempt to be funny. This thing hasn't even done that yet, guys. This movie's just boring and shit, and I can't wait for it to end. Well, guys, that was Hansel and Gretel Get Baked. God damn it, that was awful. Okay. Where to even start? First of all, I can almost guarantee you that this thing was not a Hansel and Gretel movie when it was first written. I have a feeling that what few references to that story are here were thrown in at the last minute in order to cash in on that shitty-looking Hansel and Gretel Witch Hunters movie that came out the same year. Again, that is just a theory. I really don't have any evidence to back it up outside of the fact that the references here to the fucking story are very, very slim, and the very fact that the only other connection is the fact that we have two characters named Hansel and Gretel. One of them is not even a main character, one of them's far more a secondary. Really just sort of shows that they were just sort of cramming it all in just to see what would fucking work. Anyway, So we basically have here a film that was already just trying to cash in on a shitty looking film. But also, guys, this movie itself has far bigger problems than just trying to cash in on a shitty-looking movie. We also have the fact that the fucking writing sucks, the acting is shit. I'm going to go into more detail on these, but why don't we start with the writing? Because I usually do start with the writing. Our story here is kind of, well, actually no, our story here could have been really good. However, though, the writer decided to phone it in. Because we have this little old lady who's growing weed in her basement. And she's luring in potheads with this weed that just gets them, like, massively high. And then she kills them and she sucks out their life force so that way she can gain youth and vitality and thus live forever. And apparently she opted to start doing that the moment that the film starts, because when we first see her, she looks to be about 88, and she very quickly gets younger and younger as she starts sucking off the life force of more and more victims. In fact, she actually looks to be rather, youthful after 2, which makes me wonder exactly how long it takes for all of the fucking effects to wear before she starts looking like she's 88 again. But anyway, that's it, guys, for plot. And one of the victims happens to be Gretel's boyfriend, who is going to go and purchase more of her wild, awesome weed. Which then leads to a rival, or which then leads to a friend of Gretel's boyfriend's, who happens to be a pot dealer, being hassled by a rival dealer because the first dealer's got the awesome weed because the witch gave him free samples of it, and so the rival dealer goes and one of his men gets turned into a zombie, because it just isn't a movie unless there's a fucking zombie in it. I really want Hollywood to give up on the fucking zombies. I'm sick and tired of them. Anyway. And so Gretel then goes to try to find her boyfriend, and she finds one of the rival dealer's henchmen in a cage, and it's really fucking stupid, guys. We had here a story that could have been really promising, really cool, really awesome, and it winds up just sucking because the writer doesn't know how to tell a decent story and make it work. And outside of the fact that every single one of our characters are shallow as shit, because you either are a pothead, you're a friend of a pothead, or you are Hansel and you like to take photographs. That's it. That is it, guys, for all the character depth and all the character development across this film. Is everybody's either a pothead or a witch or a photographer, or in like 2 scant instances, police officers. Also, for a movie that was marketing itself as a horror comedy, there is very little comedy to be found here. I found one genuine joke in this entire movie, and it wasn't even that funny. And it's when the cops ring the witch's doorbell, and she just sort of pops off a joke about how it about how it's just not her night because so many fucking people are ringing her goddamn bell. That's it, guys, for jokes. That is literally the one honest-to-God joke that was in this movie. The last time I checked, you needed more than one joke to classify your thing as a horror comedy. Oh, wait, and one of Gretel's fellow captives had the munchies as she was being chased by a zombie and decided to eat Gretel's trail of Skittles that were laid out when she was traveling through the witch's pot maze. No, I'm not fucking joking. That also was an attempt at humor, and it failed miserably. Guys, there is no humor here. There is nothing horrifying here, unless you happen to think that blood effects, somewhat average blood and gore, effects, are, you know, horror-ish or horrifying or gruesome, then there's also none of that here either, guys. This movie offers nothing. It literally gives you nothing at all to work with. And it gets kind of tedious and grating because, guys, you have to have a decent story in order for your film to hold up. Because nobody is going to care about your characters or even about your film unless you're telling a halfway decent, somewhat interesting story, and this stumbles right there. Now you would think that I would then, upon bitching about the writing for this long, I would then say that the acting is terrible because of what they had to work with. Shockingly, the acting is okay. The acting isn't great, but then again, once you're handed a script like this, you really cannot expect miracles. So at least the actors tried. Bless them, they fucking tried. And they failed miserably at making the script work, but again, I'm not asking for miracles here. So at least the actors turned in a halfway decent showing. So at least there's that. Special effects, I kind of summed it up earlier. It is all kind of average. We have very, very little in terms of gore. We have one kill in the movie that is genuinely creative, and that is when the witch takes the rival drug dealer, strings him up with garden hose, takes a fucking, you know, like tree tap, and jams it and goes and fucking jams it into his gut and basically taps fucking blood out of him as if he's a maple tree. That, guys, was like the one and only interesting kill in the entire film. That was the one and only interesting moment of gore in the entire film. Everything else was just kind of sort of, you know, there. I mean, it wasn't special, it wasn't terrible, but it also wasn't great. I have seen better. I've also seen vastly worse. And when you have a film whose, you know, writing is this, you know, bad, you almost have to compensate by having really solid gore and violence, especially when your film's trying to market itself as a gory horror, you know, comedy. You need that, especially when you're marketing it as a horror comedy and you forgot to put the comedy in. But hey, let's not fucking dwell on that, shall we? The camera work here, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, camera work and sound mix are like, camera work, sound mix, and lighting. The three big technicals are the only absolute positives I can give to this movie. It looks great, it is lit very, very well, and the sound mix is flawless. And also, when I say that the lighting is great, I also mean that in the scenes where it has to be, and in scenes where the lighting is trying to set a rather creepy and dark atmospheric feel, it works. So yeah, guys, camera work here is great, the lighting here is fantastic, and the sound mix is good. It's really sad that those are the only positives I can cull from this fucking movie. Guys, I'm going to tell you right now, any fucking time that I have to whittle it down to camera work, lighting, and sound mix to find positives, you know for a fact that we are not looking at something good here. Because we had decent acting, we had decent gore, we had horrible writing, and then we have the three fucking technicals, which are almost always givens, come in and go, we kind of know what we are doing. Guys, ultimately, can I recommend this thing? No, I cannot recommend Hansel and Gretel Get Baked ever. There is no reason to watch this, and I'm really thinking about just banning stoner films in general, guys, from this series at this point, because I know for a fact nothing is ever going to be as good as Half-Baked or as good as Cheech and Chong Up in Smoke. The closest we have come is High School, and even that thing kind of sucked on my second viewing of it. So this thing here is kind of sort of turning me off from ever looking at another stoner film in this series, because I fear, guys, that there is nothing good coming from that. And yes, guys, you can find this thing on on Netflix, but I have to ask you, why would you want to watch this? Moreover, why in the hell would you want your Netflix viewing history polluted with this? Because, guys, that right there is the one part about this which sucks, is now this thing is permanently in my Netflix viewing history because Netflix doesn't let us edit our viewing history. I really wish that they fucking would, but so far they haven't allowed us to do that yet. So now, I'm probably going to be shown even more terrible looking stoner films on my fucking like Netflix account because I watched this. And unless you want to also have to put up with that, your best bet's to just not bother with this fucking thing, guys. This movie was terrible. Now, I mentioned Half-Baked. I'm going to go watch that because I have it on DVD and I haven't watched it in about 2 years. I'm going to go and have some fun, guys. So anyway, with that, we come to the close of another reaction and review. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, and I will see you all in the near future. Peace.